Hi everyone, I'm Jamie, and this is Robin, Mrs. Sleepy. I'll let her sleep. And I wanted to talk about my ayahuasca experience. And if you haven't heard about it or seen my story yet, I'll put these recent blog posts I did in the description, and you can check it out. I wanted to talk about it because I don't know if some people like to watch the videos more than read. And then also, the blog is pretty new, and I don't think I've done any announcement on it yet, but check out my blog. I'm going to be doing treatment posts. I already have one on low-dose naltrexone, and I'll have some other ones coming. So, ayahuasca is a pretty seemingly strange thing to do for chronic illnesses like Lyme and ME/CFS, and it definitely might not be for everyone, and it's a very intense drug. I actually think DMT, which is one of the drugs in it, which really interesting. We actually all have DMT in us, but not that much. DMT, I believe, is the strongest drug in the world. So it's a very strong experience, and I'm so glad that I did it. I mean, it really did change my life. Like it helped immensely with mental issues, and I want to make this really clear. I do not think, and I for sure know that ME/CFS and Lyme is not psychosomatic. It is not a sickness of the mind. With that being said, I do want to point out that anything to help you mentally cope with your illness, I believe, is a good thing. So I want to draw that line where I think that this is a good treatment in an indirect way for ME/CFS and Lyme. Maybe to do once in a while, maybe to do once, and maybe not for everyone. But for me, it was good, and it's my own experience. I know I talk about a lot of weird, wacky stuff, but that's just what I do. I try obscure things, and I let you guys know how it works for me. So when I first published my blog, I did get a little bit of backlash because it's it could have like a bad rap, like some other drugs do. But I'm not really interested in hearing that. Honestly, I would really appreciate positive comments only. If you're concerned, I'd love to hear your concerns. But as far as like, all drugs are bad, and if you don't agree that cannabis can be medicinal, then we're on stuff like that. I'm on a very, very different path than you, and we probably won't agree on some of this. So, that's fine, but I don't need any super negative comments. With that being said, the reason this helped me so much, and if you were in a similar position, or if you are, it might be of help to you too. I'm hearing of more people with chronic illnesses like this doing it, along with depression, anxiety, PTSD, which are totally different than Lyme and CFS. But if you have those along with Lyme and CFS, it can immensely help. Like, so a way that I want to try to explain it. So obviously, I have Lyme and ME/CFS. I had some very traumatic incidents this last year that led me to like some of the darkest places in my life, and because I was so depressed and had so much anxiety, yes, that makes any illness worse, of course. When you're depressed and anxious and have PTSD, you're releasing more cortisol than you should. These mental issues like do become physical. That is a fact. So sometimes, physical issues like that, which I would call PTSD, and all of these mental issues, mental and physical, because it does affect you physically, especially if you have this illness, they sometimes need physical treatments. And so when I had these issues, I tried a lot of talk therapy, with a therapist, and it did so much, and it was to the point where I was living, I would, so PTSD, it was chronic, but I would have these insane, frightening, PTSD attacks, if you will, where anything I'd hear outside the house, I would think someone was coming to get me, and I would huddle in a ball, and I would shake, and I couldn't move, and it was absolutely debilitating. And then that would exhaust me. I want to point out how this affected Lyme and CFS. So obviously with ME/CFS, post exertional malaise is very big issue, and when your muscles are tensing up that many times a day, and post exertional malaise is also mental activity like reading or anything, and so anxiety can cause post exertional malaise. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that. And so that drained my energy, and it made it harder for me to work. It made it harder for me to do anything, and it got me down to the lowest I've been in my life, probably physically and mentally especially. And I was pretty desperate to try anything. And I also want to mention that the way that I did ayahuasca was 100% legal. So there are ways to do it legally, and you don't necessarily have to go out of, if you're in the United States, you don't necessarily have to go out of the country to do it. I would, if you're interested in it, I would join some ayahuasca groups, and it'll kind of come to you. It usually falls on your lap. And so, yeah, so I decided to do it. I had some help from many people, and I probably shouldn't have done this, but I put a lot of balls in that court that it was going to help me, and it really did. I did it, and it doesn't just zap your issues and make it all better for you. Although actually it somewhat did for me a little bit, because I did something called an ayahuasca analog first, which ayahuasca analog is where you get the same ingredients that are in ayahuasca, but I got them from different plants, still legally, and I did it, but it wasn't the actual, what's it called, a cappy vine or ayahuasca vine. And so I did that, and some people have it feel very similar to ayahuasca, and others don't. For me, it did not feel too similar, but it did wipe my PTSD away. I was so happy. Oh my gosh. And then once that PTSD went away, I had so much more energy, because my muscles wouldn't be tensing up 10 times a day for 20 minutes to 40 minutes at a time. I mean, that's a lot of your day when that happens. And so, and not having the anxiety and some of these other things really helped my energy. But with the analog, it was, it only lasted a few weeks, and then it started going away because it didn't give me the tools on how to fix myself. And that's what ayahuasca is supposed to do. You need to do some work. It doesn't do all of this for you. That would be great, but you really need to do your own work, and that's the most beneficial thing. And so when I did it, I went to this beautiful area with so many beautiful people, and we had some shamans there, and it was a really incredible experience. I feel like it'd be, I really hope you guys read the story that I did on it as well, because it goes into a lot more detail than would probably be necessary in explaining here. But it gave me a really beautiful journey. There weren't that many visuals for me, which was fine. That's not what I was focused on, but it gave me a lot of lessons, and it gave me more clarity in how to deal with PTSD. So PTSD, when that happens, you kind of have a irrational reaction and a fight or flight reaction to certain stimuli that gets triggered, and it trained my body and my mind in how to kind of slow down everything, which is really cool. It reminds me of something out of like Limitless, where it's like you can just really deeply analyze things as they're happening. So PTSD before, there'd be, let's say there'd be a knock at the door, there'd be no time to analyze what that was, and my body and mind would go into the idea that someone is coming to get me, and my body would react to that, which would be shaking and huddling and, sometimes crying if I wasn't too much in shock. And now, just an example of how it's helped me, I have a more natural reaction. Like, I have a sort of a red flag that goes up when something happens, and then I have trained myself to slow everything down. And so the knock happens, and then before my body and mind goes into that reaction, I stop and analyze, like, could that be a threat? What could this be? What is the next step? What should I do? And then usually this flag in my mind like turns neutral, and it's like, there's probably, a neighbor at the door. I can check and still be safe. And, if you have PTSD, what I just explained, I mean, it's, what I'm saying probably seems impossible. And to be honest, I'm sure there are ways to do this without ayahuasca. That just wasn't the path for me. Ayahuasca helped me learn that more than a therapist did. And, my therapist, she tried with me, and some people react better to different kinds of therapies, whether it's a plant medicine or talk therapy. And I did better with plant medicine. So I'm not saying that the way that I did it is the only way to get to that point that I did. But that's just an example of how it helped me. And I also had very obsessive and dark thoughts about the trauma that happened this past year. And during the ceremony, I realized that I had this strange addiction during that time, which is common when people are depressed, but I had like an addiction to replaying things that would make me unhappy, and I had a strange addiction to being unhappy. And it's actually not that bizarre when you think about how our society is structured, and unfortunately it's not super structured on making us happy. I feel like it's structured around making us feel insecure and unhappy, so that they have something to pitch to us, so that there's always a new beauty product or always something we could do better that will make us happy and give us this like false sense of happiness. And so I had this, like, I felt like my ego was being peeled off of me, and I was down to like my soul self, and all of these like societal expectations were kind of ripped apart, and I had that clean, and I helped rip it apart, and I had this clean slate to not put all those back on. So just another example of how you kind of have to work at it a bit. And so now I still kind of use the red flag example, like when I have these thoughts pop up, instead of like having this addictive tendency. I mean, it's like chocolate or something where it's just like it's there and then you just don't stop eating. And I would do that with like very destructive thoughts. And now when these thoughts come up, I have that red flag go up again, and I have a natural reaction. I'd say, like, okay, do I want to go down that path and be unhappy all day, all week, all year? And I see it, and then I turn away to something else, which sounds so easy. I mean, the thing with PTSD and this obsessive thought issue sounds very easy, but if you've been there, you know that it's not. So that's just another example, and I needed that help from that plant medicine. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but I feel like it'd be a very long video. So this is what I wanted to say about how it can kind of be dangerous in a way with ME/CFS. And to be honest, I don't know. It's not a lot of people with these illnesses have done it. I mean, I actually know some, but it's not, there haven't been studies of its effects, on Lyme disease and ME/CFS. But the hard part is if you have chronic pain, it can be so incredibly unbearable. I went for 2 days and nights, and after the first day and night, I didn't want to come back because it was so physically painful. And then what I'm about to say is anecdotal because I can't find any studies on this, but this is what the shaman told me, so I want to mention it. But no, it may or may not be true. I'm not sure. But when this was happening, so I just had burning pain, and it was just one of the most incredible pain I've ever experienced. And it felt like I was detoxing. I felt like every virus and every Lyme bacteria in my body was being moved around and trying to be forced out and killed. And it was just so painful. And then with Lyme, you have something called a Herxheimer reaction, where when the spirochete is penetrated, it releases toxins and your body goes into some shock. And that's what it felt like, 100%. But I didn't know if ayahuasca did that, if it was actually could have some sort of property that could penetrate Lyme. The shaman said that it does, but but that's anecdotal. But what does seem to make sense is that I did decide to go back, and when I did it again, I barely had any pain at all. I was so thankful. And it does make sense that it could have had a very huge Herxheimer reaction, because if I did detox a lot of Lyme bacteria and then I did take like a nice bath after, which would have, gotten some of the toxins out, then I wouldn't have as much to kill after. That's how Lyme works. So it could, that could be it. And then another thing, if you have ME/CFS or Lyme, a lot of the similar symptoms, it's really hard to do that for a long time, because if you're there, you're really tired, especially ME/CFS. But the good thing is that like you lay down and do it the whole time. So even if you are tired, you're laying down. But just know, if you are sick, it can be an incredibly taxing physical experience. And the reason I say it may be dangerous is putting your body into too much shock, especially physically, is not, always the best thing. You don't want to feel like you're on the verge of death. So, it's always good to talk about your medical issues when you're there, to talk about it with a shaman. They had a medical doctor at my ceremony, which was really great, and they were somewhat knowledgeable with Lyme, so that was really helpful. And another thing that you may struggle with is that there's a lot of medications you may be on that you cannot take with ayahuasca, and it can be dangerous. And additionally to that, a lot of pain medicine is not allowed, so that was what was really, really hard. Next time I do it, I'll probably try to find a ceremony that at least allows cannabis, because a lot of them do, but this one didn't, and so I had nothing I could do for pain, and it was really hard. But it helped so much emotionally, and when you have that emotional help, like, let's say, you have Lyme and ME/CFS and you have all these, these mental issues that might not be from trauma, but just could be from having ME/CFS and Lyme, that could impact you a little bit more and more. And so having to deal with that could be beneficial. It could be. So, again, I don't want any crazy comments about being a druggie or anything like that. This has been helpful to quite a few people, and I think anything. I mean, I'm all open for open dialogue about these things because there aren't a lot of people talking about ME/CFS, Lyme, and ayahuasca. There actually is a girl named Ariana Joy, which I recommend watching her because she has Lyme and she did ayahuasca and did some really good videos. But anyway, yeah, I'll put some links to ayahuasca stuff, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you read the blog, and I hope you have a good day, and I hope that this perhaps answers some questions, or just gives some insight into what ayahuasca can do and what it's like. So, yeah, bye!